You guys can hear me Hi, is everyone able to hear me? Yeah? Okay, good. I hopped on like 7 minutes before 1 to make sure everything was all good, and then I, of course, still had issues. So, how is everybody? Good. All right, well, today's training is on contract to close processes and what to expect once you have an accepted offer, and kind of highlighting the details between contract to close. So today we'll be discussing the importance of communication. We'll go over the parties to the transaction, who needs what in the transaction, ensuring everyone's on the same page, client communication, identifying and communicating deadlines. We'll go over key dates and deadlines, reviewing the contracts, going over the inspection, the appraisal, the financing, title review, scheduling the final walkthrough and closing. The importance of reviewing all contracts, all documents, and ensuring accuracy. And then just some organizational tips as well. Very important in this process, or in this stage of a transaction. So the parties to a transaction, so there's the buyer client, of course, and they will receive a copy of the offer and all copies of the title commitments, anything from here on out, they will receive a copy of. The importance of communicating deadlines to the clients. So you'll want to highlight all of these, send them off to the clients, the buyer client and the seller client. The listing agent will also obviously have a copy of the offer. They will review for deadlines and they will continue negotiations. The buyer's agent copy of offer, deadline review, and continuing negotiations, of course. Seller's title company is another important party to the offer. They'll receive a copy of the offer, listing agreement. They handle the closing statement prep and the title search. They will get copies of the lien waivers, any lien waivers that are applicable to the transaction, and they will receive the home warranty invoice. The buyer's lender, they will receive a copy of the offer, of course. They'll receive the buyer's financial information. They are handling the underwriting of the buyer's financial picture. They are voice. The buyer's title company is sometimes the same as the seller's title company. They work directly with the lender, and the lender will be communicating with them directly. But their primary responsibility is the closing disclosure prep, which is the equivalent of the seller's closing statement, and that includes all of the buyer's figures, a lot more comprehensive and detailed than seller's closing statement. And an appraiser is a party to the transaction. They also work directly with the lender, and the buyer receives the report. And contractors might be a party to the transaction as well, as far as follow-up inspections. They might be needed. And I did not include the actual general home inspector on this, but they are obviously involved in the transaction. Sorry, okay. So agent to agent communication. So the buyer and the listing agents obviously continue to negotiate on the inspection and the financing if necessary, and continue to negotiate on the appraisal if necessary. Each agent is going to be continuing to, they're going to review the contract for dates and deadlines, and they're going to share them with each other so that we can all ensure that we are on the same page. We just want to make sure that our dates and deadlines are matching up for sure. Agents will schedule key dates like the final walkthrough, and they'll coordinate the closing time and the location. We will, as agents, our job is to schedule any contractors if necessary. And scheduling inspectors, sometimes it's agent prerogative, but you can have the buyers schedule inspections directly with their inspectors, or you can help facilitate that as well. Client communication, between now and closing, you're going to be reviewing the contract and identifying the key dates and deadlines and sending them to the clients. I would say that setting your own template for this review would be very important. And we'll talk about these organizational tips at the end, but just making sure like you're doing the same process each time with a client. But this template then, and I'll get to this, will be used to communicate the dates and deadlines with the buyer. You're going to send them a full copy of the offer, of course. We just need to ensure that clients are getting all copies of every single document that comes through in the transaction. Your communication with them is a good idea just to help with identifying expectations of the next steps. So once you get through one step of the process, you'll want to follow up and let them know what they can expect next. So for example, once you're through inspection, my communication piece is always, now we're going to get through appraisal, and we should expect to see the appraisal next. And you're just continuing to coordinate for negotiations as well. So now getting into the key dates and deadlines that you can expect in a transaction. So once I have an accepted offer, first thing that I do is I identify the key dates and deadlines for the offer using timeanddate.com. And I just want to make sure that everyone is getting on the same page. So, and I want to communicate the deadlines to the client. And my communication piece to them always is that I will be keeping on top of these dates and deadlines for you, but you need to have an understanding of when they are. So you're going to identify when the offer was written and the date that it was accepted. And then using timeanddate.com, I identify the major contingency deadlines based off of the deadline count. So earnest money, you'll identify that due date. You'll identify the due date of the inspection. You'll identify the due date of the radon and general testing contingencies, well and water if applicable, the appraisal contingency, the financing contingency, and the closing date. And this is just a tip. I use timeanddate.com. This is what it looks like. Really helpful website. If you just go to this directly, add to or subtract from a date, you can fill in the date of the accepted offer, and then over here put in, say it's 30 days for the financing contingency, and then calculate new date, and it will give you the deadline date. So, and then this is the template that I use for a buyer. And I have a separate template for a seller as well. It pretty much mirrors this though, obviously. So again, as you can see, I will identify when the offer was written and when the offer was accepted. And this is also an organizational tool for myself, because when we need to go fill out an amendment, for example, it asks for when the offer was written and when the offer was accepted. And it's just a quick reference point that I can go to when I'm filling out those documents. I'll identify the purchase price. And this is an email. I'm sorry, this is a PDF that I send to the buyer. The earnest money, when it's due, and then I'll also include who they need to make the check out to and who to deliver it to. The proof of financing date. This actually is a piece that I have still remained in my process, even though it's not technically required. But within 7 days, the buyer needs to secure or needs to start the application process. So we can talk more about this, but I always, in my communication to the lender, I always request that they let me know that the buyer has officially applied for their financing, and then communicate that with the listing agent. So, and that's just to ensure that the buyer has started their process and has not dragged their feet in any way. The inspection contingency due date, I will identify, of course, the testing contingency, the appraisal contingency, the loan commitment, and then when closing is. And then I'll also communicate with the buyer that the final walkthrough will be within 3 days prior to closing. Excuse me. And then home warranty is a part of the offer. I will include that here as well. So I'll just finish the sentence. Home warranty will be provided to you at closing. And then I also identify the inclusions and exclusions. And again, this is just for the buyer's information, as well as yours. So moving on, the first major deadline is the earnest money. And again, you're giving your client the instructions. It's typical that earnest money is due within 3 days. So we want to get that information out to them as soon as possible. So who to make out the check to, you are going to check the private remarks in a title company. That's usually typical of smaller brokerages. If they should drop it off at the office, if they can mail it. And then now too, a lot of more brokerages are using trust funds. So you'll want to find out with the listing agent if we should be using the trust funds option. As an agent, you are ensuring that you receive the earnest money receipt and then delivering that earnest money receipt to the lender and to the title company once you receive it. The next deadline is the inspection. And typically that's 10 to 14 days after the accepted offer. And my communication to a buyer always is that we need to have that inspection scheduled. Any follow-up inspections based off of the general home inspection need to happen. And then we also need to negotiate repairs all by that deadline. So just to keep in mind that you want to get that home inspection scheduled ASAP. And a lot of times, I think that it's very important to establish a relationship with an inspector so that you can, as you're going through the offer writing process with a buyer, kind of having that conversation, a sidebar conversation with the inspector, asking like how far they are booked out. So that's just a tip. I have a texting relationship with all of my go-to inspectors, again, just to kind of find out when we can get inspection scheduled and how fast we can get it scheduled. If they're a week out, I might go to the next person on my list, you know? So, and then kind of same actions, I would, you know, as part of your business practice, I would get comfortable with identifying your favorite contractors, having them on a text relations. You might need to be swift. Not might, you'll need to be swift with getting follow-up inspections. If you guys have questions, there's more in-depth training just like on the inspection process itself. I know that Kimmy does. But, you know, having those contractors be available to get estimates done is very important when you're working for a buyer. So the same way with the seller as well. They'll want to know how much something is going to cost them, and that will help with negotiations down the road. Then negotiating the repairs through an amendment. So there's a few ways to negotiate an inspection. And again, there's more in-depth training on this, but just kind of to give you a general idea, are we going to ask the seller to complete the repair based off of what we found, based off of an estimate, based off of a follow-up inspection? Could we use that same figure and do a closing cost credit? Could we use that same figure and just do a price reduction? So there's a number of ways that repairs can be negotiated. So if you have any questions, obviously, about negotiating an inspection specifically, always come to me. The thing again is that all of this needs to be done by the due date. From the buyer's perspective, if the deadline comes and goes and you have not extended the inspection deadline or have not come to an agreement, that buyer is buying the property as is. So it's very important to stay on top of. Next, with the appraisal, the buyer's lender will be coordinating the appraisal directly with the appraisal company, and they will order it. So your role in this mostly is just to make sure that it gets scheduled. And I always, kind of make it like a checkpoint for myself after we get through the inspection to go to the lender and say, have we gotten the appraisal ordered yet? Agent to see if they have heard from the appraiser to get it scheduled. Whenever it's scheduled, that will kind of inform when I should go back in and check on it. So if an appraisal happens on a Monday, it's typical that it's 4 to 5 days to get it back. So I might check in then on a Friday, report yet. So, and there is a deadline in place for it, but just to keep on top of it, I can set those checkpoints in for myself. A lot of this you could kind of say, or kind of micromanaging this process a little bit, but that is part of our service to our clients, I feel. So better to micromanage, I say. So, and then along with the appraisal, it's important to keep in mind that there might appraisal value. So just to be mindful of that. And then the passing of the deadline satisfies the contingency of the property appraises. So if you get a appraisal back and it has appraised okay, meaning the purchase price was $250 and it appraised at $250 or above, no need to take action once the deadline passes. That will satisfy the contingency. If it does not appraise, though, we need to iron between the buyer and seller on the price, or a notice needs to be sent to the seller letting them know that the offer is dead because it did not appraise. So loan commitment is typically the next deadline. So your role with the loan commitment, the buyer and their lender are working directly together. My role, I feel, is communication with the buyer to make sure that they are getting the lender the information that they need in a timely manner. So again, once we have an accepted offer, I'll just kind of do a quick, when I'm going through the next steps, I'll say to them then, again, make sure you're getting anything that the lender asks of you, make sure you're getting to them ASAP. Can't drag our feet. And then communication directly with the lender. I'll send copies of the offer. And then I'll also send the appraisal and the loan commitment to my email to them. And I'm doing this, the accepted offer, ideally. So along with preparing that contract review deadline summary for the clients, I'm getting a copy of the offer ready for the lender. And then based off of the deadline review, I'll send them the loan commitment and the appraisal deadlines. And then in that same email, I'm requesting the proof of financing application. And this is also just an introductory email to yourself as their agent. So, and then periodic check-ins with the lender. Are we on track to receive by the deadline? So I'll put a calendar reminder to myself a week before the loan commitment is due, just to remind myself to check in with that lender. If we haven't received the loan commitment, my communication to them, my question to them is, have we received it, or are we on track? And then once the loan commitment is received, the buyer will sign that letter and they will send it, and then we'll send it to the listing agent, which satisfies the contingency. And you can just set them directly up to sign the loan commitment letter. It used to be that we had to send a permission to deliver, which is still applicable, but you can just have them sign the loan commitment letter directly. If the buyer does not qualify, then the lender will send a rejection letter. And we would send that along with a notice declaring the offer null and void, if that may be the case. So, but again, the main point of this is that really the lender and the buyer are the ones working directly together, but your role is just to check in on it. Title review. So it also is a part of the offer. The seller has to bring free and clear title to the buyer at closing. So you should receive the title commitment about 14 to 21 days after the accepted offer, I would say. There are also additional trainings on reviewing title commitments conducted by Andrea or Jenny. But our job is to review as well. And what I'm looking for are judgments on the title that I know I can quickly go and ask the title company, are they working on X, Y, and Z to remove, and as a protection as a service to our buyer as well. As listing agent, you're going to ask the title company if they're working on to remove it. So your listing agents and buyer's agents are to review the titles. And if you know, it's just through time on task and like anything with this business, but you know, the more that you see, the more that you'll feel comfortable with them. And you know, if you feel that you want to get kind of a better training on this before the next, I think through productivity coaching is when we'll have Jenny or Andrea do a training on title reviews. But just anyway, schedule a time with Jenny or Andrea and just ask them what we should be looking for. So again, we're going to be looking for judgments, so that any red flags that we might want to ask the buyer's agent. But also the title company will communicate with you on anything major. So they're going to try and get it taken care of without having to come to you. But if there is something that they think will delay closing, they'll come to you on it. So this is just more a case-by-case basis, I guess. And then if there is you know, if everything looks good and typical, I just forward it to the clients and I'll just say, no need to take action on this. You'll receive the final commitment after closing. So, and same way with the sellers, I'll forward it on to them and just say, no need to take action. You'll just say it for your records. Next up will be the walkthrough and the closing. And as agents, we need to get the final walkthrough scheduled, and that's always within 3 days prior to closing. We'll coordinate the closing time and location. So it's typical for the closing location to be at the buyer's broker's office. I think with COVID times, they are having them held at the title companies. It's all on lender preference, but your check-in point is to ask the buyer and the lender simultaneously if they have gotten the closing scheduled. So Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, what's the best time for you? And then Mr. Lender, where are we going to be closing? Is there a preference? During this process or during this time as a listing agent, I will also remind the seller on the condition of the home, just as a reminder for them as they're moving out that all debris and personal property needs to be removed. Closing, I give them a guideline of 1 hour prior to close is when they need to be gone. And then the final walkthrough from the buyer's perspective is to ensure that the repairs have been done, any repairs that were negotiated in the inspection. The home is in the same state as when the offer was written, no major damage, that all debris is gone, all seller's personal property is gone. And this is dependent upon the timing of the final walkthrough, because if you are doing it, let's say that 3 days prior to close and they're still in the middle of a move out, that might not be the case, obviously, if they're still moving out. But I'll use that time to look for anything major, like piles of debris in the basement or something, or if I see a bunch of paint cans or something, I will use that and I communicate with the listing agent to make sure that it's gone, just to give them the opportunity to give the seller a final reminder that it needs to be gone. So just want to highlight the importance of reviewing all documents before forwarding on and before getting signatures. Just reviewing for mistakes, you know, just just reviewing for mistakes. So then the closing statement review, you'll receive the closing statement from the title company prior to closing. And I always check to make sure the purchase price is correct, that the earnest money is the same as what is stated in the offer. I'm looking for the correct spelling of the address, making sure that the municipality is correct, making sure that the names are all spelled correctly. I am looking for the home warranty amount and making sure that the home warranty is on the closing statement. This is a big one. I have in the past missed home warranties. It's pretty typical for a home warranty to be missed, and then it's not getting paid. So we have to go back to the seller to get it paid after closing, which is not good. Making sure that the commissions are correct, contractor invoices, So sometimes contractors will be paid directly out of seller proceeds. So we'll want to make sure that that those are reflected if that's the case. So very important to review the closing statement. Any errors will be going back to the title company. So if that home warranty, for example, we'll use that, was missed, I would highlight it. I would resend them the invoice and say, oh, the home warranty got missed. You got to add this. And then they'll edit and resend it out to everybody. So one thing I did not include on this list, closing cost credits. So that might be something that is written from the get-go, or a closing cost credit might be the result of an inspection negotiation. If that is missing, we need to let the title company know. So along the way, kind of going back to what the title company needs, anything that would affect the closing statement is what they would need. So if that closing cost credit, for example, was a result of an inspection negotiation, then I'm getting a copy of that amendment off to the lender and off to the title company as well, to make sure that they are aware of it. And then same with a reduction in purchase price, of course. So any decks along the way that are received or passed along, the title company and the lender should be receiving them. Organization. So you want to systematize this process. You cannot rely on your memory for this. It is just, there are just way too many details to keep track of. So as many times as you'll need a system. Checklists are very important. And this is where it's your preference, right? Saying the same thing to, buyers, sellers, title companies. So I just started creating templates for myself so I could quickly plug that in and then tweak it as the transaction called for. So here's just like the top half of my, and I can send you guys a copy of this, but here's a copy of my checklist. Now, whether you want to do it on paper or plug this information into Command, everyone will have their own preference, but as you can see how detailed it gets. So again, offer written, accepted offer date, putting the close date in, the client's name and their contact information, any notes that I might have for myself, the lender's contact information, the lender's title company. Even though I don't have direct communication with the lender's title company, it's very rare that I would, I still want that information in case the listing side is asking for it. So the dates and deadlines for my buyer, have I done that? It's a checklist item. Have I sent the dates and deadlines to the listing agent to make sure that we're on the same page? Have I updated my calendar with all of the due dates? If this is a condo, have I received the condo doc receipt? And then this is, you're going to personalize this to how you want, but I plug in information to my volume spreadsheets. This is an old terminology, the loop, but instead of the word loop, you would use the word opportunity. Have I submitted my opportunity? Proof of financing sent. Have I received the earnest money receipt? Have I gotten the offer off to the lender? So I kind of organize this for timely, like, stages of the contract to close process. So next, like this is all everything in yellow is typically happening within the first week of the accepted offer. Then the next section, are we through inspection yet? If there's any repair items, shoot. Okay.
I can hear you now normal.
Is everyone there? I don't know what happened. It suddenly just. Renita, you're the only one who's back. Sarah. God, did everyone just jump off? Probably.
I think they may have, can you hear me okay?
You're okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe people jumped off when you were gone. I think that's what happened. Your voice once in a while, and I'm not sure if everyone heard it, slowed down like it was in slow-mo. Just, Renita, did you hear that?
Yeah, it was freezing and then it just cut off.
A little bit, but I mean, then you would come back and it would be full normal. So it was just sporadic. Maybe every 10 minutes, something would get a little funky.
Okay.
But I mean,
Okay.
it was good. We could follow everything and it would like catch up. And then just this last one, we lost you.
Okay, I don't know what happened. Well, you guys want to hang out for, I mean, I only have a little bit more left to go.
I'm hanging in that organization checklist.
Yeah, I was on the checklist still.
You say you can forward a copy, maybe?
You know, these
Yeah,
are great.
I'll forward you guys PDFs of these. So, can you guys see the screen okay?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
It sounds great.
All right. So I had to hide everybody too because I couldn't see my own screen well. So I may have been off like way longer than I had realized. So anyway, okay. So I think where we were was where I was when I realized I had lost everybody, was just that middle section. So like everything in yellow, like I organized this for like stages of the contract to close process. So everything in yellow is typically happening between like day 1 and day 7 of the accepted offer. And again, too, like some of this stuff, it won't be applicable. Like the spreadsheets being updated or the whiteboard being updated. These are actually old checkpoints that I had for myself when I was on a team. Although there are still spreadsheets that I update, but then after this, then again, moving on to like the next phase and, you know, negotiating inspection, getting the repair items, due date on the calendar, just marking off when I'm through testing, making sure that I sent the home warranty off to the title company and the lender. It's during this time that I will make sure that the appraisal is ordered, and going back to when I was discussing the appraisal, that's just like a check-in with the lender, like have you ordered the appraisal yet? And then likewise making sure that the appraisal is back. So and then moving on to kind of the next piece in the transaction is making sure that the title commitment has received. So again, you're kind of just making these checklist items for yourself, because you'll just forget, like, you know, as you're going through and getting busy, you know, you won't think about the fact that you haven't received the title commitment yet, you know? So when you can revisit these checklists, you know, as you're going through them day to day, like, oh, this isn't marked off. Have I received the title commitment? Oh, I'm gonna go check my email and see if I received it, you know? So it's just, again, reminders to yourself, like, it's not necessarily something that you need to take action on, but need to be mindful if you have been sent it or not. So the well inspection and the water test reports, again, only applicable if it's a part of the offer. Loan commitment received. So again, all just like I mark these with X's when they're all done. Did I get the walkthrough scheduled? Yes. Closing scheduled? Yes, we did. Closing date and time? Done. And then I'll put that on the calendar. So, and I'm just gonna show this, and I will say I'm not using command for my checklist processes, my contract to close processes. I know that we can build in these same kind of checklists, but this is the dashboard, and using your statuses within your opportunities, like if we're looking down at buyers, like if you have anything under contract, you'll have in this under contract phase, and then you could click on this and it'll bring you to everything that's under contract, and your checklist will be built into that. So just be mindful that you can build these same checklists into your command.
Hey, Steph, can I ask a question?
Yes, absolutely.
Just being totally transparent that command is intimidating. There's just so much to learn.
Yeah.
And I think
Absolutely.
I'm really curious if you find that that just comes naturally over like a year's time, and just not to worry and fixate on what you're missing out there, because I feel like the business can probably be okay as you're slowly learning that. Is that
Absolutely.
accurate? Okay, because it's very intimidating for me, and I am not going to fake the funk. It's just not easy.
To service your clients well, you need to have an understanding of the overall process, and you need to focus on that, you know,
Mhm.
and making sure that we're keeping in contract, you know. So yes, absolutely. I think that, you know, I feel like where you should start with command is probably the lead generation piece and the marketing pieces.
Okay.
I think having a good handle on that first and foremost will help you utilize command to its fullest, you know, and then build these things in.
Okay. That's helpful. Thank you. I couldn't hear you there.
Yeah, it's freezing again.
It froze up.
I have to try to get off into this command also. It's just so much stuff from
I know.
start to now. It's just like, oh my God.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Slow down one
Slow it
step.
down, right? I'm with
I
you.
thought, you know, when you take the real estate exam, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go. We finna do this. And then they
Right?
get to the office and they're like, oh, you have to do the coaching and oh Lord, so much.
I know. We'll get it though. Take your time. Don't stress yourself.
You'll get it. You'll get it. I'm gonna come out here because I'm having internet issues.
Okay.
It's so much, and I'm ready to go. But I'm like, yeah, I need it because I can't just think I know everything. Because when she got to telling me how to work the command and the websites, and I'm like, oh my God. Then you had a list hub, and I'm like, well,
It's a little scary. Uh-huh.
like
A little
what's the
intimidating.
because I'm confused by MLS. I'm like, I thought that's what it's so much that I'm just trying to work with. Like,
I think when you kick it old school, thinking like how they've done this for years, that's why I was asking Steph, like, you know, like they survived without all these things, but these things are such good tools that'll help build our business faster and better, but at
Yeah.
least survivability
yeah,
Right.
initially,
I
right?
think guys to get started, like it'll just come naturally. It just takes time
Yeah.
because we like rookies, so it's like,
Yeah, I think everyone feels the same.
yeah,
For sure. It's a flood. It's a flood. So I just think, again, having a good understanding of the overall process is key. So
command is like a big part of the transactions, or it's just a good part, important part of the business, I should say, because you have to go to command for a lot of things.
yeah, I mean, as you're, you know, as you're setting up these systems for yourself, you could just try going to command right away, you know, and building those checklists within this, you know, but also being mindful of just like what's going to be comfortable for you in order to serve your client at a high level as well, you know. I sort of feel like I don't want to say this out loud, but like if I admitted that I was kept to a paper system, for me it's just like having my book, having my flip pages that I can flip through and quickly zero in on what I'm missing is helpful for me. So
Like the sheet you just had, you could just write it down and
yeah, So
I'll get it. It
you'll
just
get
takes.
it. I'd rather have you have a better understanding of the communication flow and who needs what within the contract to close piece versus trying to get a handle on whether you're going to use a paper checklist or a command, you know. So we just want to make sure that the people get what they need. So, and then using your Gmail calendar as a checklist as a tool as well. So I will put all of my deadlines on the top of my calendar. And as I'm moving along the transaction, as I'm completing tasks, and as we get through a contingency, I'll mark done. So, like right here on the 20th, I have 1234 Main Street LC due. That's loan commitment due. I'll put the appraisal deadline up. On the 23rd, I wrote 456 Gary Street. I think my example there was earnest money. So that's when the earnest money is due. And then once that I received it, then I put a done in front of it. Never enough checkpoints. 1234 Main Street closing date. So I'll put the closing date on the calendar, and as a reminder to myself, I'll see it up here. And if it's still remaining up here, then that's also an indicator to me that I haven't gotten it scheduled yet. Because once I have it scheduled, I'll move it down to the time that it is within the calendar. So again, just another tip, but you want to put these things on your calendar for sure. And then when I was talking about or referencing the email templates, so within Gmail, you can create email templates.
Oh, okay.
So along the middle section is where you can see the types of email templates I have. So offer to purchase summary is at the top. So that's my quick email to the buyer. And I'll attach the PDF of the dates and deadlines, but then I'll have a quick note in the body of the email as well. I have a closing week email. So the week of closing, I'll be giving a reminder to the buyer what to look for from the lender. Seller accepted offer email, the lender email that I was referring to before. So this will include the copy of the offer and the closing date, the loan commitment date. So
These are all in Gmail?
These are all ones that I've created for myself. So as you are going through your transactions, like even start from your first transaction, like the types of emails that you're sending, take note, and you can create these templates for yourself.
Are those in folders or those? I haven't dove into Gmail like that.
So if you see on the, like if you're composing an email, down here there's like this 3 dots.
Yep.
And if you hit that, then it'll bring you to templates.
Okay.
And then you'll go up here, and that's where they'll start to stack. So you can start, so that where it says save draft as a template, you can just go to that right away, and then it will prompt you to name the template.
That is super helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, that was all I have for today. But just the major point is just to stay on top of all of this to prevent issues down the road. You know, we can't miss deadlines that will put our clients in jeopardy. You know, we just have to have checkpoints and organization in place, systems in place to make sure that we're keeping on top of all of this.
I think I may have missed a few. How long after the accepted offer do we have for the appraisal deadline?
So that's all built within the offer. So this is good for me to develop this training. So you're going to be grabbing those deadlines from the offer to purchase. So so have you had an accepted offer yet?
No, I just
No.
received my license like a few days ago.
Oh, awesome.
I'm like fairly new. This is like my first training ever.
Oh God, okay.
So I'm like, I haven't done anything.
So you'll lift those dates and deadlines from the offer to purchase. So if you haven't written an offer yet, this will sound foreign to you, but you'll from the offer to purchase, that will inform like when you're writing an inspection contingency, you'll be writing in a deadline count of, let's say, 10 days. Then you'll use that 10 days to inform what the deadline is. So it'll make more sense when you have an accepted offer. So same with the appraisal. If you wrote in a 21-day appraisal deadline, you'll calculate that from the accepted offer due date. Or you'll calculate that from the accepted offer date.
Okay. I'm just look it over and kind of get more in depth because it's like been a few days since I actually took the test, and it's so many contracts to remember, so many deadlines, and I have to just go over it again and read the fine print, and then I'll kind of get a better idea.
Thank you, Steph, for doing this. This was awesome.
Yeah. Thank you guys for coming. I'm sorry that happened. I'll have to hop on Facebook and yeah, just.
No, it wasn't that big of a deal. There were just a couple moments, so don't worry about it.
Okay. All right. Well, just reach out. We'll be doing this training again, like, you know, it'll be in the rotation. So.
Okay. What would you recommend for this week? Do you have any?
Go to Phil Byers at 11 o'clock on, I think that's going to be at 11. So it's on the July training calendar.
What is it? Phil Byers?
Phil Byers, yeah. So it's managing your database.
Okay.
Both of you, go to that. He's excellent.
Wait, you said managing the database? I see Phil Byers, but it's
the topic might not be
Wednesday at 10. Oh, okay.
Is it 10?
Yeah, it's Wednesday at 10.
Okay.
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 Yep.
And then productivity coaching, of course, on Thursday.
Okay.
And then we'll see you tomorrow at the meetings.
Oh, there's 5. Create a list. Oh, okay. I have to tune into that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. Sounds good.
Awesome. All right, you two. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, there we go.